Hello everybody, today we are going to talk about something what is called variables, and we'll also talk how that interactive shell is working and how to create our own script, okay? Because so far we have typed something in this interactive shell, like for example 4 plus 5, and we have acquired a result like 9. And that's all. Do you imagine writing programs like that? Every time when you want to change something in your program, you would need to create it from the scratch inside this thing. That would be horrible. That's why we have got something what is called scripts that can be run by this Python. So we can save the code for later and we can run it later. Okay, so how do we do it? Well, we need to click on File, then on the New File, and then we have got an editor opened like this one. And as you can see, now this file that is gonna be our script is untitled. We can change this, the name of this thing, and we can type here some kind of code. So let's, for example, print something like sample, okay? And let's save it. File, save as. And as you can see, the default place that it wants us to save it is where the Python is installed. So we can now type the name of our script. So for example, sample. And the extension will be added automatically. It will be .py. So it will be something like that. When we click save, probably it will work. But it doesn't need to, because we are saving it in the Python folder. And it can lead to problems because there can be problems with window privileges. That's why it's when you have got an error, if you have an error, then save it on, for example, documents folder or on any disk that is not a system disk, okay? So if you have got a message that you can't do it, then save it somewhere else. And now we can just click save. So we have got now sample saved. We can now open this thing if we had closed it, right? Here is a sample. We can also do something like that. File, open, and then we can go to the documents and we can open it. That's cool, right? Because we can open it and we have got it saved somewhere. So we can have a code that we can reuse later. And now we can run it. When we click on run and then run module, as you can see, we have got here as a result sample. So it's working. We can change the code here. So I have just copied it using the Ctrl+C shortcut and now Ctrl+V. And now we can run the module. And as you can see, we have got the sample sent here to the output a few times. So it's working, right? It's pretty cool, right? Because you can save a code and reuse it later. Of course, this code will be a bit more complex than this one. Okay, now it's time to talk about variables. Okay, about thing that is called variables. And what is that? This thing is a container. Variable is a container that can hold things. You name this container, like for example A, B, C, or it can be more self-descriptive, like for example age, speed, name, or something else, right? You can name it and you can put into it, like into these boxes here, some kind of content, right? So variable, when you look at the name of variable, so it is something that is able to vary. It means that you can change the content of this box anytime you want to something else. So why would you need something like variable? No, well, the simple way to explain why you need it is that, well, when I write something like that, 4 plus 5, I have got a result here and I don't have it anywhere saved, right? I've just lost it. I can't, take this 9 from here and do something with it later, right? But with variables, we can do it easily. We can write, for example, A equals 4 plus 5, and then we can use this label that we called A later, and we can send it to the output. So we can send the value later out. So I can do, for example, like that, print A. And when I run the module, as you can see, we have got a 9 here on the output. We can add even more or change that value. So we can change it later to something else, like for example 10. Print A, and as you can see now we have got here 10 because we changed the value of A to 10. So that's really cool, right? Because we can now reuse that value later, right? We can do something also like that. A equals A plus 5. What does it mean? It means that I want to add to A the value that was there. So it was 9 here, right? 4 plus 5 is 9. So 9 plus 5. So let's send it to the output like that. Run. And as you can see, we have got now 14. That's true, right? So we can add the value that was there before. So this is the use of variables. We can change the values inside of the labels. We can reuse them. And of course, right now we put the data, the information manually, but in future you will get the content for these variables from, for example, database, from a file, from the user, right? So right now it's just a simple example, so we do not make it complex. We just assign means that we put the value manually, so we just type it like that, okay? So this is a variable. Variable is a container that holds some kind of content. And this content can be integers like this one, the sequence of characters and other things like that, but we will talk about types of variables in the future lectures. For now, just remember what is variable and why do we need this concept in order to understand what is interactive shell. Look, you have probably noticed that every time when I run the module, we have got here a message like that, restart, which means it restarts the shell. So it means that everything that was written before doesn't belong to that shell anymore. It disappeared, okay? Everything that you've done from before. But it also means that you have got now access to everything from this script still, even though the script has already been run. So when I type print A, you will notice that we have got still value 10 inside A, right? We can add to A, for example, 5, and we have got 15. We can still work on the script that's been run from this place. Okay, that's why this thing is called interactive shell, because you can have an interaction with the scripts that are run. Okay, we can do whatever we want with the script like that. I know that right now, if you are a beginner, it might not feel like it's useful, but believe me, it's pretty cool feature that doesn't exist in other programming languages, because in other programming languages, when you run a program, that program will just return result that you can use in other programs, and that's all. But you cannot, work on every variable, every function, other things like that from the script, okay? So that's pretty unique. That's why this thing is called interactive shell. And you can also, for example, restart the shell manually. And from now, when we do something like that, as you can see, we will get a message, name A is not defined, which means it has not been created. It doesn't exist, okay? So from now, everything, we start from scratch. Every time you restart the shell, you start from scratch. It's also good to know that when you create, for example, variable A and you assign here 5, in interactive shell, you can print the value without having to use the print command. You can just type A. And as you can see, you have got the value here. Well, I did it here. I hope I haven't confused you here. So you do not need to use the print in order to see the result like that. Okay. By the way, do not worry when you make mistakes, when you make errors like that, because it's pretty common when you are starting your programming adventure. Really, you will make tons of errors and it's normal. Do not worry. It's good idea to practice. Okay, so after this lecture, try to create script, create a file, name it whatever you want, and after it, save the file, create some kind of code, create two variables, assign, so put some values into these variables and print them on the output, and then run the module, run the script, and see the result. Okay, and play with variables. This is good idea to every time when you finish lectures from this course to practice on your own the same things I did. And in addition to this, it's good idea to give yourself a like 5 to 20 minutes break after each lecture before you start practicing, because your brain will start to forget what it has learned, and this is the best time to learn things, because if you do not let the brain forget the thing after 20 minutes, it's gonna be in your brain for longer. It's gonna you're gonna fortify, you're gonna reinforce these memories of the things that were about to be forgotten. Okay, so remember, practice, and again practice programming after each lecture. Do the same things that I did in the lesson. And in addition to this, remember to look how I write code. Look, I added space here. I didn't need to, because if you don't, the program will run too, right? But look, this doesn't look as good as this, right? And as this. This is cleaner code. Try to create clean code. And in order to create the clean code, you need to look how I do it, and you need to make habits of making clean code from the start. If you're gonna be lazy and you do not have a clean code from start, you're gonna have problems in future, and people will not look at your code like it was professional, and you might not get the work. You will have problems spotting some errors, because when your code is horrible written, really believe me, it's really hard to analyze code like that and to spot errors. You will make errors because of chaotic code. So remember to focus on starting good habits from start. Okay, so to sum up, in this lecture, we've learned what are variables. Variables are containers that can hold values, different types of values, but we'll talk about these types in future lectures. And we also learned that in order to save the code for later, for reuse, for later usage, we need to create a file, like for example this one, and after saving it, we can run it in our shell. What's cool? This shell is interactive, which means it can have interaction with the programs that were run, right? And that's pretty awesome, because, well, you can create a new variable, like for example that, and add 5 to it, and then you can print it out, right? You can work with the script that was run already. That's all in the lesson. Thank you very much.